Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the Legacy of Beauty panel at Black Femme Supremacy Film Festival 2020. My name is Miriam Hirsi. I was on the screening committee for this year's festival, and I'm excited to moderate for this discussion. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that although the festival is online this year, Black Femme Supremacy is organized on the unceded land of the Piscataway, Lumbee, and Cherokee peoples. We organize on the ancestral homeland of Piscataway people, now known as present-day Baltimore. We wish to pay respects to the elders, past and present citizens of the Cedarville Band of the Piscataway Kanoi, the Piscataway Indian Nation, and the Piscataway Kanoi Tribe. We strive to hold space and value the perspectives that these nations share regarding their histories, cultures, and traditions. As we build community with sovereign nations to ensure reconciliation on their rightful land, we encourage our attendees to learn more about the Piscataway by going to piscatawayindians.com. So if all the panelists could join me, and we could start with introductions. If you all could go around and say your name, the film you're involved with, and your involvement with the film.
Hi, everyone. My name is Stephanie Crawford, and I am the director of Creating Looks.
Hi, everyone. My name is Effy, Kawira, and I'm the director and writer of In Praise of the Shadow.
Hi, my name is Tayana Brumaire, and I'm the director of Kinky.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kirsten Mills, and I am a participant in Creating Looks.
Hi, everyone. My name is Alicia Harris, and I wrote and directed Pick.
Hi, my name is Ariella Tai, and I'm the director of Safehouse.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kourtney Jackson, and I directed Wash Day.
God, muted. Okay. What I was saying was if we could all talk about the theme of the festival and just specifically the theme of the panel. So not the banging. Legacy and the legacy of beauty specifically. So how, for all of you, how does your film sort of engage with legacy, and what legacy do you want your film to leave behind?
So in my film, Kinky, I pretty much want to leave a legacy of just people accepting their hair and their natural hair. And as a young Black female who grew up in an era where people were wearing perms and there weren't a lot of natural hair products, and wanting it to be sure pretty much own, I much want to leave a mark of people just loving their natural hair texture and loving their length, and just pretty much regardless if they're kinky or curly or pretty much short or long, pretty much leaving that natural, accepting their natural texture and being comfortable in their own skin. So that's the legacy and mark I want to leave for in my film.
Does anyone else want to touch on legacy? Stephanie?
Yes, I just want to say that with my film, I want to build on the legacy of expression and creativity. One thing that when I was in the research process and I was going through Spelman's archives and looking at pictures from the 60s and 70s and seeing how much, students used fashion, used style, used clothing, hair, nails to really express themselves. And I want to build off of that legacy of Black people using, what's around them, the clothing that they have, to show a different side of themselves, to show their creative selves. And so I definitely believe that what Kirsten's doing with her magazine of documenting that as it's happening, in the film, taking what she's doing and also along with images from the past to see what we're continuing on doing by expressing ourselves, expressing our creativity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. What Stephanie said. Looks the Mag is all about building a legacy of Black people, of showcasing Black trends at Black schools before they become mainstream, and changing the narrative of the legacy of being something like a trend being predominantly of one culture, but was actually made or started by Black people. So we just want to give credit where credit is due.
Did anyone else want to?
I'll go.
No.
So with my
Go ahead.
With my okay. First of all, love what everyone else has said. My film is also about a young girl and her hair. And I think the main legacy that I want to leave behind with it is I want people to learn from it. So it pretty much exposes very clearly what young Black girls have to deal with when we wear our natural hair. And on the one side, I obviously wanted to like share my own truth of what I went through and what I'm sure many young Black girls are still going through, and what I'm still going through as an adult when I wear my afro. But I really want to get the film into schools, and I want it to be used as an educational tool, because I still kind of feel like our story isn't being shared enough. So that's my final destination for the film. And I just want as many people to see it, specifically children, because I wanted to positively impact the next generation.
And for me, I think all of you guys made great points as well. The legacy I want In Praise of the Shadow to leave behind is vulnerability, and like Black vulnerability, because I think oftentimes you're forced to be strong or to put on this kind of armor most times. And the film really kind of was that exploration of embracing pain and like actually bearing it and accepting it. And I think showing that there is beauty in that. And I think that's something that we often deal with in the Black communities, having to constantly be strong or having to constantly be the strong Black woman. And I think we don't see examples of Black bodies being seen as delicate or fragile. And I really wanted this to be the expression of that emotion, I guess. So.
Oh yeah, just following up to that point. I think I was more so thinking about the film as changing the legacy of like hair discrimination and that point of Black people being seen as invincible, impenetrable, unharmed, and can take on a lot of violence. But I also just wanted the film to act as a space for Black women to, I guess, sit in their own maybe discomfort, vulnerability, also shame about not being, I guess, self-actualized in self-love and body positivity, and knowing that that's a valid space to be in your life. But yeah, I think for people who are not Black watching the film, I just wanted people to take away the perspective that, like we're everybody else, and have a personal journey in figuring out who we are physically, emotionally, spiritually, etc.
I think that with Safehouse, I was really thinking about creating a legacy of healing, and thinking about the different types of intimacies that especially Black, queer, and trans people engage in with each other. and trying to think about some of those like types of labor that we do for each other and with each other in the context of the histories that have been erased and that we may never know like the specifics of, and just trying to like imagine that and kind of like project like those types of intimacies and like create those imaginaries for the future, even though the records don't necessarily exist in the past.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you guys for all sharing that. And also, I think I love how all your films touch on different aspects of beauty, but also don't center around like typical modes of how we see beauty, as in desirability, as in especially desirability to men or in the cis heteronormative sense, and engage with beauty as more of a personal journey. I would like to see Stephanie, if you could talk a little bit about what drew you to Kirsten's story and why you wanted to capture that in your film.
So I remember when Kirsten like got us all around, like our friends at school, and was like, "Guys, I'm launching a magazine." We're like, "Oh my gosh, yes!" And so we, for me, seeing her passion and her drive, her, you know what, I may not have, everything, but we're still going to do it. That was just something that was so inspirational to me. I was like, "Sis, I got a documentary. Are you cool with that?" She's like, "I'm cool with that. Let's do it." And so, for me, it's just seeing her and just other people making something literally out of nothing. And that's like, when it comes to fashion at HBCUs, that's what it's like. People will take a string and you're like, "What is that?" And they're like, "It's fashion." I'm like, "How did you do that?" And so it's documenting that and, just encouraging and supporting that, supporting that creativity. That's what really inspired me to create this film.
Yeah, Kirsten, could you also touch on like your experience like being the subject of the film?
It was so awkward for me, but Steph is one of my closest friends, so it wasn't too awkward. It was just more like I was talking to Steph and it was just on camera. And I realized while documenting that I'm a bit sporadic. Like, I'm like, "Okay, I have a shoot going on right now. Can you come?" And it'll just be because I found this girl and I'll be like, "I want to photograph her. I like her style, her outfits." And I would get my photographer together and we would shoot. And so I would always have to remember to tell Steph, like, "Please come if you have time." One time I dragged Steph out to the park. It's been a lot of different things that are in ways that I had to let Steph in to get the real deal about things, especially like the personal aspects of the magazine where I had to create layouts and things like that. Most of that's like done by myself, but bringing Steph in was a different type of vibe, but it was still nice. It was beautiful.
Yeah, no, I can imagine. I feel like that is really expressed. Like you're not only just like Kirsten's experience making a magazine, but also I think your dynamic also, even though Stephanie's like behind the camera, I think you can tell, like you can see your dynamic through the film, which is really cool to see. If I'd like to touch on like aesthetic, because I think all your films have such distinct atmosphere and visuals and everything in a really interesting way. And I think you all connect that to your themes really interestingly. If you all could talk a little bit about that. And Ariella, I'm really interested in how you, like your personal relationship to your aesthetic. You could touch on that.
Well, the film, I'm based in Portland. And for those who don't know, Portland is a really everywhere is like a horrifically anti-Black, but Portland has like a very specific anti-Black history. And the house that we shot it in was like an all-Black house that, that was like a community space for a lot of Black, queer, and trans people here. So that house in particular, and the two main actors, April and David, lived in the house at the time. So I chose that house because and like that space, because it kind of embodied that aesthetic that I was interested in, of like just exploring like what a safe space could possibly look like and like what we could project into that space. So like the place was really important. And we did like do a lot of like production in terms of like making it have a certain aesthetic, but there was an extent to which like that kind of like confluence of like beauty and mess and like, you know, clothes and like patterns everywhere and like food everywhere, and that was kind of like always the vibe, because there was always like people coming in and out, and like, you know, like a party had just like wound down or something like that, so like there was always that kind of like energy in that space. So that was definitely something that was like, I think that was like a really big aesthetic influence in the film.
So
Kourtney, could you touch on? Oh, anyone could go. Sorry, go ahead.
So for my film Kiki, the aesthetic was pretty much urban Brooklyn, because pretty much there's a lot of culture going on. There's a lot of Dominican hair salons. There's a lot of African braiding spots. So there's a lot of culture infused in different parts of New York City, and I just pretty much want to show basically part of my childhood, neighborhoods nearby, and pretty much show like how it influenced the way we either wear our hair or what styles we do, because pretty much there's a lot of culture. There's many Hispanics that wear their hair straight or curly or dye their hair, and there's different places where people just solely Black people that just go get their hair braided. So I pretty much wanted to show like two friends that come from two different cultures, and one influencing the other based off of culture and more so of the area that they're around. So that's pretty much the aesthetic, an urban setting, and yeah, that's pretty much just the culture of just being in New York and then being influenced by different cultures and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
With Pick, I chose very deliberate shooting style to not show the lead character's face until the end of the film. So basically, it's picture day, and she's wearing her afro for the first time to school, and we experience the microaggressions. And I don't even really like the word microaggressions, because it kind of makes it seem like these are small things, but just the comments people make to her throughout the day. And the reason why I didn't want to show her face was because I really wanted to force the audience to think about how she's feeling and force empathy from them. And so there's a lot of shots where we see her from behind and the side, and we don't really get her visible reaction. And I wanted to do that because a lot of the times when I'm in those situations, like I don't visibly react, and maybe that means people don't think I feel anything in that moment. So I didn't want to give the audience like the satisfaction of seeing her face. And then it kind of made the end a very powerful moment, because you get to see, she takes her photo and you see the decision that she's made, and it's very clear how she feels, like if it wasn't clear throughout the whole film. And so there's also a lot of great close-ups of her hair. And what I like about that is I'm showing like how beautiful her hair is. Like it's like art, you know, you get to see it so close up, usually on a huge screen, but then it's also showing like everybody is kind of just seeing her hair. And oftentimes I feel like that no matter what hairstyle I have. And yeah, it just can feel very objectifying a lot of the time. So yeah, the shooting style was all to try to make the audience feel the feelings of the protagonist.
For wash day, I was thinking a lot about scale and ritual and intimacy, and I think one of the biggest goals that I wanted to achieve in the visual elements of the film was feeling that you were with the subjects, and you were there as Eve was, putting on her eyebrows and on her makeup, and Kawira, and she was laying down her edges, and Magda writing in her journal. Like I wanted as much as possible to kind of interpolate whoever's watching in the film in the space itself, because I felt like I wanted to heighten that presence and the participation in the ritual itself. And so gradually I tried to make the frame just a little larger and larger until the final reveal at the end, where it's each of their portraits. But yeah, I was thinking a lot about intimacy and space, and trying to collapse as much of that as possible between the subjects and whoever was watching.
And for me, from Praise of the Shadow, my mind was kind of in a space of thinking about duality and day and night. So the first half of it, I called it daytime because she's like in the sun, she's in this open field, she's really free. And then the second half, she's like in this parking lot, and it's kind of like this badass like evolution of herself, which is kind of like the evolution that we all go through when we embrace who we are and we come into ourselves, and we really own who we are. And so I wanted to represent that in this style, and I wanted it to still be raw, so we shot it all handheld, and just kind of followed around with her, and just to have that movement. And stylistically, it was kind of really dark and moody. Even in the parts of the day, you kind of have these parts where there's a little bit of distortion in how we edited it. So yeah, just like an exploration of duality in that sense, and what we choose to show the world, and like what we keep to ourselves, and eventually letting go of that and sharing that with everyone.
No, yeah, like I'm really interested in how your film balances its visuals with like the words, which are really interesting. Like, could you talk a little bit about the excerpts? Like, did you write them? Did you bring them in from somewhere?
Yeah, I actually wrote that. I write poetry, but like I also write scripts, but I don't really share a lot of my poetry, and this was the first time that I've actually put it out there. And it just kind of came to me in a moment of reflection, because I was in a point in life when we were making this, I was in a point where I was just kind of experiencing so many changes. And so that kind of spoke to me, and it kind of came with the story, how kind of everything unfolded, because I hadn't written this until we shot it. And then when I was looking at the footage, I was like, yo, what I've written really fits what I feel and what I think this film represents. And to me, it was kind of a point where I was at, where I was thinking about how we identify our character as people, and how we see character as something that's just this constant part of ourselves that's there and does not change. But I think that we all kind of go through these periods of time where things challenge our character, like who we are. And so that's what I kind of wrote it about, because I was kind of in periods of time where I felt challenged in that way. And yeah, that's kind of where it came from, and redefining ourselves. So in the middle of that part, when I wrote that voiceover, there's a section where it just, revival, then the vibe switches completely, kind of like a rebirth, or like being reborn. And I think to that, it means something different to everybody who kind of watched it. And yeah.
Yeah, no, I think like, especially once it cuts out and you don't hear like the words anymore, and you just hear the music, and she's like in this like really brutalist like atmosphere with the leather, and it's like, it feels very like Grace Jones, like it's really cool. And I think, I don't know, personally, like I just felt like it was like dualities of like a person, and also like relationship to gender, relationship to expression. And yeah, I just thought that was really interesting. And to jump off that, to talk about like more words, Ariella, could you talk about like the city of Hartman that you incorporated?
Yeah, I had been doing, when I was making the film, it was originally for an exhibition that was thinking about the future of psychiatric institutions and asylums. So I had been doing a lot of research and really struggling to find histories of Black women and Black queer people in psychiatric institutions. And so like when Wayward Lives, Beautiful Experiments came out, I felt just like very drawn to it because of the work that she does, kind of like intervening into like the deliberate erasure of those records, like the excavation work that she does, and then also like the projection work that she does into it. So I felt like it kind of like gave me permission to like move away from trying to find these like specific records of like pain and trauma, and instead to try to like just like project imaginary and like try to like work from a space of like more like intimacy and care than focusing on pain. And so I like chose that specific portion. It's the portion where she's talking about a strike that happened in a workhouse that incarcerated Black women, and talks about like the noise that they made from the strike as like being this kind of like sonic upheaval, this like rupture that's like a strike in terms of like the literal strike, but it's also this like formal like aesthetic like break as well that they're kind of like making together. Like she calls it like jazz. And so I was trying to think about like these kind of like formal interventions that I could make into the portrayal of these characters, and the way that like, and using the text to kind of like tie the actions that the characters were doing to like the kinds of labor that like these women were conscripted into doing while they were incarcerated. Because like a lot of institutions, when they would incarcerate you, they would like force you to like work in the fields or like do like domestic crafts and stuff like that in order to like rehabilitate you. So I was like thinking about how those actions can be like reframed or are already, you know, reframed, you know, to care for ourselves instead of like laboring for other people or like laboring because of what we're being like forced to do.
Yeah, no, I think that really shines through, like the care and the intimacy and its relationship to the words. Like I think there's like a part where they're doing each other's hair, and then there's also like the moment with the hair in the bathtub that feels like, I don't know, maybe a little bit more less, how do I say this? Like I feel like the hair aspect is a little bit more complicated than just doing each other's hair, and it's a little bit more, I don't know, darker, I guess, in that moment with the bathtub. But I'd like to touch on, Kourtney, if you could talk about, was it shot on film? Could you talk about?
Yeah, it was shot in
like,
go ahead,
no, you're fine. Go. If you could talk a little about like the process of shooting on film and why that was important for Wash Day.
So I shot the film on Super 8mm. I was originally thinking about it in terms of like the film is set in private domestic spaces, and I like Super 8 is heavily associated with home video and home movies. But I think film, just the texture of it lent itself really well to ideas of tenderness and softness and grittiness. And so I think like there was a tangibility about the film that I think really enhanced the content of the conversations about body and our relationships to our body, and of physically taking care of, interacting with, changing various aspects of our body. And so I think the use of the film, and I just think the use of the film changed, or the reasons, or I'm trying to articulate this in a way that's accurate. I think the device of using Super 8 evolved while I was working on the project.
Yeah, and I think it also has this like it looks like when you see the portraits at the end, it feels very like vintage, like it feels like an ebony magazine spread out, or like those prom photos that people would take in like the 90s. It feels like you've seen how they articulate their own processes of processing beauty, and you see their portraits, and it, you know, in the film it feels very I don't know, it feels very cool. You see that at the end. I'm gonna ask Tayana, could you talk about Kinky, like centering that relationship of hair and also centering it like with the mother-daughter relationship?
For me, when I was creating Kinky, I kind of wanted to tell personal, like give my personal experience growing up, and how my mother would straighten my hair and she was so willing to do it. And in the film Kinky, the mom wasn't, so she's not for straight hair, and she was for natural hair. Even from the beginning, you see her looking through ads and she see a natural hair product and she wants to buy it for her daughter. And growing up, that wasn't my mom didn't really see it that way. She was so willing to straighten my hair, and kind of me reliving, I kind of wanted to relive my own experience. What if I was a younger girl and my mom refused to straighten my hair? Would I be a different person? um would my relationship with my mom be different when it comes to beauty? And she would tell me beauty is pain, so she was so willing to straighten my hair. So that's pretty much the mother dollar. I kind of just wanted to relive it in a different version of my life, and how would my I would perceive my hair as in a younger age. Now I'm more accepting of my hair, and my mom is accepting of her own hair. We're both natural. So kind of just sharing that moment of like pretty much what if things were different back then when I was straightening my hair? What if my mom refused? So I kind of wanted to relive that moment in Kinky in a different version.
Yeah. And Alicia, was it the same for you writing Pick? Like, was it as personal for you?
Yep. It was super personal and difficult because my film is focusing on, like, I would say I like reevaluated. I still had my hair permed at the time when I started the film, and as I was making the film for a long time, I continuously was evaluating like what made me commit to perming my hair for 11 years in a way where I was never really doing that before. It was kind of like the film motivated me to self-evaluate. And so I did the big chop after I cast my actress, and she had a huge, beautiful afro. And I was like, okay, there's this like 11-year-old girls out here rocking this fro. I think I'm going to go back to my natural hair. But it was like a year of evaluating that and thinking about that almost every day. And then I finally did it. And then I actually had to take like quite a bit of time off before I went to shoot the film because it was just kind of like too much and I had to like stop and take care of myself. But the legacy of the film for me personally is that it inspired me to cut off all my hair and go back to my afro. And you can't see it today, but it's huge and I will never go back. And I am happy that I finally have my fro back. And I think Black women should feel like they can wear their hair however they want. Just for me, I felt like I wouldn't be beautiful if I didn't have straight hair. And now I don't feel that way anymore. And I don't think any young Black girls should be made to feel like that. So yeah, I'm happy that the film inspired that change in my life.
Yeah, I think you definitely get that effect, especially when you center like you and like Pick and Kinky both centering children who have such, you know, complicated relationships to hair as they're building their sense of self and stuff. That's really cool that that was your experience with that.
And there's one thing I want to say, if I could say something.
Yeah.
In my film Kinky, I pretty much displayed when I look back and watch what I shot, I pretty much displayed two different types of natural. One with the mother having a shorter afro look, and then Maybelline, the main character, having a longer, thicker look. And pretty much displaying there's different types of natural hair looks, and there's not one type of natural. So I kind of pretty much looked back and realized that recently that guys displayed different types of naturals, and there's not just one way to be natural. So that's something that I figured I caught onto my own film, and I didn't realize it was that way when I was casting it. So
yeah, no, definitely. I think someone's saying it's time for audience questions, so we will look at those. Okay. This one says, how do you feel about beauty being judged as who wears the makeup best rather than the natural beauty that exists in skin, hair, and heart? Who wants to touch on that?
I'll just say, I think that the whole point of like stepping into your power and like the legacy of beauty is that we're not judging. Like, I think you can wear makeup. I think you can wear your hair straight. I think you can wear your fro. And I would like to get to a place where we don't have to like evaluate ourselves so much as Black women and judge other Black women so much based on, you know, whether your edges are laid or whatever it is. So I'm just like, let Black women do whatever we want.
Period.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does anyone else want to touch on that question?
Yeah, I'll jump in. Just to like reinforce Alicia's point, like I think like the structures and the systems that create those hierarchies and systems of evaluation need to go, and that stepping into your own power means realizing what makes you happy and comfortable and what you feel beautiful in and good in and comfortable in. And it's never an argument of natural versus relaxer, but I guess the argument of when are we going to stop judging Black women about the hair that grows out of their head? Like, when do we not have to worry about getting a job based on what our hair looks like? Like, I think that's the judge where our judgment should be rooted in.
I also
to what we look like.
Piggybacking of what these two ladies have said, I think that the media plays a huge role in how women and young girls view what is acceptable. So if more mediums like magazines, what we see on social media, what we see on TV, if these films, this type of beauty, this type of lens of beauty of just embracing your natural self being beautiful, if those things were more projected and more represented and mainstream, we'd have a better view of how Black women should view themselves and other women around them.
Yeah, I agree. I think women should just have the liberty to choose for themselves as to how they want to be seen and how they want to present themselves and how they want to show up in the world every day. Like, you could shave your head off and you could your hair off and you could still be beautiful. You could wear a frontal and you could still be bomb. Like, and I think for what we're doing as filmmakers, it's important in that sense when it comes to representation, because it's not just about the natural beauty, it's about having the diversity and the range in beauty so that everybody can see themselves in something or someone. So I don't think it's about natural versus unnatural or glammed up. It's about showing everything and then choosing what you want for yourself and how you want to show up.
Yeah, no, thank you. I think that is all our audience questions. If our audience could ask some more, that would be great. Appreciated. I'll ask, what do you think is currently missing from on-screen depictions of Black people, whether that's women, gender non-conforming people, navigating beauty, or if there are depictions of that in our media?
Wait, can you repeat the question? Sorry.
No, of course. What do you think is missing from on-screen depictions of Black people navigating their relationship to beauty? Or
I-
even have that. Anybody?
Oh,
go
sorry.
Ahead.
No worries.
Go ahead,
muted.
Kourtney. Go ahead.
You can go. It's totally.
No, yeah. I was saying representation is pretty much what's missing, because you don't see enough of ourselves to see that we are beautiful, and we're constantly fed this idea of beauty that doesn't completely represent us, or that's more sometimes Eurocentric. So I think that's one aspect that is missing, not only when it comes to like appearance and aesthetic, but also narratives and stories.
I agree with that, and I think it's also not like what specific thing is missing. I think for me, it's more like we just need more Black women getting the opportunity to tell their story, because we all have different stories, and you know, most of us have a film here that hair is a part of it, but we all have completely different films. So I think we just need more Black women getting the opportunity, because even with my film, I was like, oh my, I felt so much pressure that I had to make like my hair film so great, because I was like, I haven't seen this film, like this is for Black girls, and it was just like so much to like feel like I was doing a good job for like Black women and girls. And I feel like if we were getting if we were seeing it more, we ourselves wouldn't feel so much pressure to like solve all of, you know, the problems that we face with our work. But yeah, I feel like it puts so much pressure on like Black people to have all of their projects be perfect when we all just don't have as many opportunities. So we all have different stories, and I think we should all just have more opportunities to tell them and see them.
Absolutely. Period. I think we have another audience questions. We can pull that up. Ooh, okay. Sheila, what would you tell your grandmothers about beauty and hair today? Interesting. Stephanie, did you want to touch on that? Anyone can go.
If you all are prepared, you all can go ahead. I'm still pondering over this question.
I would tell my grandmother that there's no one type of beauty. I growing up in a Caribbean culture, there being slim and being a lighter complexion was beauty to them, because that's something that they grew up hearing about, and mothers told them, their fathers told them, or just any woman in their family basically told them that this is beautiful, being slim. And I will tell my grandmother that there's all types of beauty. There's not one way of just being narrow-minded and thinking one way and stuff like that. So I will pretty much tell my grandmother that there's all beauty comes in all shapes and sizes and textures and lengths, and there's not one way to be beautiful to attract what either a man or a job or anything of that nature. There's all types of beauty, and to be more open-minded and to see that. And so
Yes, I definitely think that in today's age, there's definitely a more expanded like aspect of what it means to be beautiful. A lot more people embracing like their own inner beauty and showing that. But at the same time, there also is a competing force that is kind of more confining of what beauty is, and that is also still reinforcing the kind of Eurocentric beauty standards, or they'll take bits and pieces of what is, you know, bits and pieces from other cultures and put it all together and tell all young women, girls, everyone, this is what you have to conform to. So it's definitely a space where it's a tightrope to walk. You would want to express yourself, but sometimes because we have social media, you won't get the likes, you won't get the attention, you won't get the engagement if you don't conform to these certain standards. So it's a very complex landscape we have to deal with, and when it comes to beauty. and everyone has their own definitions of that. And with that, it can make it very hard, especially for young people coming up, because they may get confused, they may get lost on, is my own kind of beauty acceptable? Even though everyone says, oh, all beauty is acceptable, but I'm not getting the engagement, I'm not getting the likes. So it's very complex.
If we could go on to the next question, next audience question. This one is from Iman. Hey, Iman. Do any of you think of the possibility of divesting from beauty as a liberatory practice, i.e. deciding to vie for what is posited as ugliness or a refusal to adhere to norms? That's a really good question.
I've been thinking a lot about that, about what that looks like for me as a Black person. Because I think like I just have personally just my mind is just so loud with racing thoughts about what that looks like, and especially for women, like there's the question of like, do I can subscribe to beauty and the ideas of societal beauty and whatever that means, to feel good and to get validation, but I can also understand I guess the insidiousness of that system and that structure, but I can also use that to make it work for me. And so there's like a lot of I guess like, or just even about that latter option. Like I used to work at a bar, and one of my coworkers made a comment about the female bartender, and he was like, "Oh, she dresses for this job, and like she dresses for her tips." And so, I'm wondering if my good sis who's making the drinks knows how to get her money and get her extra tips if she's wearing a tank top, and just people are utterly mesmerized by bare arms, then like, why not, And I think like, just, I don't know. I think like, I've been thinking about what it means to participate in this system, because it doesn't seem like there's no definitive end for it. There's no definitive end for this capitalist system that we have to like sell ourselves for, but it also doesn't serve us. It doesn't serve me as a Black woman, as a Black person. So I mean, I've answered the question. I haven't answered the question. I think my answer to the question is that I'm still thinking about it and struggling with it, and trying to learn from the greats and read the greats about living in this effed up system of white supremacist capitalist patriarchy.
Yeah.
I feel you. I think that
Go ahead.
it's usually hard for us to admit the fact that beauty is a currency as well. And we literally live in a world where sometimes most times, let's be real, you're rewarded for looking a certain way, or presenting yourself in a certain way. Going back to a point that I think Kourtney made earlier about having to show up to a job interview with your hair looking different, or something that's not too Black, in order to get the job. So kind of conforming to the spaces that you're in, to be accepted. And I don't think when it comes to beauty, it's really completely our choice, because we live in a capitalist world as well. And I think it's very insidious, because we do have to basically sell ourselves in certain ways, or conform to something that's not natural to us, to get by, or sometimes to get ahead. And some women do that in a way where they're able to get compensated for that as well. And I don't think there has to be shame behind that either. I think it's just a world where everybody's trying to survive, and until we could basically restructure the whole system, I don't know how that could happen. It's a very loaded question.
Yeah.
to be honest.
No,
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely feel like that's like a lifelong question that people have to ask themselves. In our last few minutes, we have an audience question specifically for Wash Day. So if we could pull that up. All right, this is Edna. In Wash Day, the film participants commented on both their relationship to their body and their hair. How do you think that for Black women, this relationship manifests in daily life?
Well, I think that relationship manifests differently for every Black woman because experience is so vast and there's a range of them. But I'll just speak on myself. Like, I've gone on to the bus as a 12-year-old with pigtails and have been told to pay bus fare. I've been sirred and I've been stripped of my femininity, whatever that is. I've been named the aggressor in school conflicts when I was really the one who was experiencing harm and violence. I've been shut out of spaces. I'm honestly just thinking about like middle school and high school when I was just really impressionable in those environments. So there's just a lot of projection. There's a lot of agency that's removed from you in terms of who you are, your voice taken away. I've been in the principal's office for bullying kids because they're too scared to come to school. And it's I think with Wash Day, like, I really just wanted to, I guess, like, forefront that dichotomy. Because I think that I was a really sensitive kid and I was utterly confused by the ideas that I was like super tough or a bully or someone that caused harm, and that disorients you and that utterly confuses you when you're trying to figure out how to do your hair when people are picking at it and throwing paper at it like the characters did to Alicia's protagonist in Pick. And so there's a lot of external perception that kind of taints your own view of yourself. And you have to be disbelieving of reality, of your outside world to find some truth within yourself. And so, yeah, I think that's definitely been my experience. But with the film and even Kira and Magdalens in the film itself, like I think they definitely spoke to how that manifested in their daily lives, for sure.
Yeah, thank you. We have one final audience question for the last few minutes. This one from Afomia. Hey, Afomia. Did you have experience before going into making these films? Anyone can jump in on that one.
This was the second film that I made. And it was my first time shooting on film. And so I guess like a follow-up or maybe a question that you're really asking is can you make your own film without experience? And I definitely say that you would, and to reach out to other people that you think that you would want to talk to about what you're wanting to make your film, and maybe collaborate with other people who are wanting to start something new and try something new as well.
This was my second film. I'm currently at school studying in documentary film. So this is my second documentary that I have made. It majority of it was shot on my phone. Some of it was shot on Panasonic GH4 that we had from class. I would definitely say, like, when it comes to making your own film, you can definitely, there's a lot of resources out there. Your phone in itself is a camera that is very powerful, and there's a lot of resources that are out there that can help guide first-time filmmakers if you're just interested in, just exploring and finding out more. There's so much information that's out there. Tutorials, YouTube. I swear, I call it YouTube University. You can learn so much that is on there that's for free. And so if you're interested in making films, it's your best friend.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think this was my fourth or fifth film that I've made. But the prior films that I'd done in the past, I had produced them, but this is the first film that I had really, really made as a director and written as a director. And I've also done a few music videos as well, but it didn't all start like that, y'all. Like, basically, I didn't go to school for film. I didn't really have the academic experience or the experience being in a classroom. I think filmmaking largely comes from real life and just the real world and teaching yourself and learning from your friends and learning through other people who know more than you, which I've been lucky enough to have like tons of friends who went to school for it, and I could ask questions and be like, yo, okay, how do I do XYZ, or what do you think the best way for me to shoot this would be? And working with really experienced DPs. So I think just try your hand at it. You're gonna mess up along the way for sure. You're probably gonna make a few errors, but that's where the learning really comes from, and that's where you really develop your voice and your style.
I just want to say thank you all for being in conversation with us and sharing your insights and your films. I just, if you could all go around and say your social media handles. You could start with anybody.
Go ahead, Kourtney. I feel like they keep on cutting each other off.
You can follow me on Instagram at KJJJAX. You can also follow Wash Day and updates about the film at Wash Day Film.
And you can follow me on Instagram at Effygasm, Twitter at Effy Kawira, and if you ever want to see any of my other work, my website is effykawira.com.
So my Instagram page is at a Black Girl Gaze. I am currently working on a website that's coming up soon, but for the content for now, photography and film, it's on there.
Uh-oh. You can go first.
Okay. You can follow me on Instagram or the magazine at Looks the Mag on IG. And yeah.
You can follow me on Instagram at Tayana Brumaire. That's just my regular name. And I'm working on the process of working on a website too. So just keep on the lookout.
And my Instagram is just my name with an underscore, so at Alicia K. Harris _.
Sorry. You can follow me on Instagram at @PatraVonCont, and my website is just my first and last name.com, so ariella.tai.com.
Was that everybody? Okay. So Black Femme Supremacy will be available until Monday. I think you can see this on YouTube, and you can vote for the Audience Choice Award on bfsfilmfest.com. Again, thank you all for being in conversation with us, and thank you to our audience for listening in.
Okay.